Is it on? Okay.
Why is that so funny? Is this on? Well, is mine on?
Is it time to go? Should I start talking?
You said it so softly.
Is this the point where
on?
I say something?
On? Hey! Hey, everybody!
You're listening to the Homeboys podcast, recorded in our Indiana office and with combined 40 years of experience. Here's your hosts, Clint and Scott.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Homeboys podcast. We're excited that you're here with us today. We got an exciting topic. We're going big. Mm-hmm. We're talking commercial real estate. It's a lot of interest in this always, across most of our clients. Yep. And people just want to know, how do you get into it?
Right.
How do you start? How do you scale from single family to commercial? When is the right time? We really don't know.
It's true.
It's one of those things that you really just have to start researching early, but we're excited to talk to you about it today. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button down there. Join us for this podcast and all the other content that we provide. But my name is Clint Wetherill. As always, I'm here with my business partner, Dr. Adams.
How goes it?
I'm good. I'm a little under the weather today, so
yeah.
I'm not on my A game, so you're going to have to carry me a little bit. And you're not on your A game either because you've had a wild weekend. Your youngest graduated high school. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'm an empty nester. As crazy as that is. You're just getting started, and I'm officially an empty nester.
It's pretty funny because, me, my wife, my kids, we came over to your house this weekend for the open house, which was lovely. You've got the ponds and the fish and the lake and all that. It was just a fabulous time. But, I was sitting there thinking, seeing your oldest daughter who's in college and then seeing your youngest daughter just graduate high school. And then my 2 and 4-year-olds are running through the yard, terrorizing all of your other guests.
Right, throwing rocks in the ponds.
Everyone's just shaking their head. Oh, it's those Wetherill girls. I'm like,
you got two good girls.
I know.
Don't kid yourself. They are very good kids.
But we are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum here.
But you're not feeling so good. I had Ivy graduation, prom the next night, which is weird that they do it that way. Graduation party all day. My grandma turned 94, so our family all gets together for that. And then my brother and niece and other family were in town. So yesterday was then just, you would call it a chill day, but it was like constant, groups of people and everything.
Busy weekend, my friend.
And crazy.
It was great seeing your grandmother, too.
She's awesome.
Not only 94, but she looks incredible at 94.
I know. She's amazing. She's amazing. I hope those genes pass down.
There's no way you're making it to 94, my
there's
friend.
There's zero chance. Zero chance.
I mean, I can say the same thing. Yeah. No way.
Right.
We talked about some of our wild college days. We pretty much closed that possibility early on. Yeah. But
we used up 8 of our 9 lives already.
Correct. We're on fumes.
We're already on fumes. That's awesome. So so you're not feeling that great, but this is a great topic, though. This is something you and I are both very excited about.
Great topic. Something that we've dabbled in throughout our careers. We actually have a lot of relevance, quite a few relevant stories here recently because we have acquired some commercial property for the two of us, and we've also built commercial properties. But let's go backwards.
Yep.
And, we primarily specialize in single family, but we get lots of questions about commercial. Sure. When does a person take that leap? When do they start looking at commercial property? And really, maybe even go back further. What is a commercial property?
Yeah, so a commercial property doesn't necessarily have to be like industrial use or retail or office space. It can simply be residential real estate that's grouped together, on a very small scale. Like for me, you could almost consider duplexes your entry into this. We don't really consider that part of this family, but it could be the toe in the water type of thing. Mm-hmm. From there, I think the smallest commercial is a great example is our property that we have up at Ball State. So we have a 6-unit complex that's basically for graduate students that we're actually in the process of selling because we bought it, fixed it up, and we do what we do. We're developers. And it's got storage underneath it too.
23 units of storage.
Yeah, so that's a light entry. I'd call that a light entry into it. And so it doesn't have to be something totally new to folks. If someone has, say 5 rentals or 10 rentals and they've maxed out their Fannie Mae, allowable 10 loans, and they want to do the next thing, something like that would be the easiest, step into it. So it can be something as small as that, and it can be as large as a 144 unit complex that you've been working so hard on us being a part of. So it can be a whole mix of things, obviously.
So the one that we're talking about in Muncie that you think would be a great entry,
right,
type for someone, and I totally agree. That is something that we acquired. So you obviously can acquire existing, or some, will build it,
right?
Which we have,
Yep.
even here recently,
right.
But let's talk about the acquisition piece of it a little bit. Where's the best way to find commercial properties that are out there?
Yeah, it's difficult, obviously. We are in the business and we live and breathe it, and we have a full-time acquisitions person. And, this is going to sound maybe strange to folks out there, but we basically have unlimited money because of our borrowing power and our relationships with banks. So, in a sense,
that was built very slowly over time.
So it's not like, we just have unlimited money. Our pockets are huge. Over our 20 plus years each in the business, we've developed banking relationships and trust and proven ourselves as performers. So the banks, when we see a project, they'll get behind it, is the bottom line. So we have the ability to buy whatever we see that we like out there, and it's difficult for us to find stuff. So it is very difficult. If you're plugged into groups like us across the nation, a lot of them tinker with it the way we do. Even though our main core business is single-family residential, I think a good place to start is to let any groups you're working with know that this is something that you're interested in. I think that's the best place to start.
I think for me, I don't really have a life much outside of real estate. So a lot of my personal life is just knowing what is out there. So say, for example, if I'm at home, watching Cinderella with my kids.
Right. For the 700th time.
For the 700th time. Easy 700th time. Bippity boppity boo. But I've got my computer in my lap combing through Loopnet. Loopnet's a great tool out there. It's a place for commercial real estate listings that there's free accounts. You can get a premium account if you want. I've never even done the premium account.
We did for a short period.
You're right.
But you don't have to.
I was wrong, but I just use the free service, now. But I'll give you a great, for example, my dad was in the hospital a couple of years ago, and there was a point when we were in the hospital, and when he was really, really stable, I was getting exceptionally bored.
Yeah.
And I was down in Evansville, Indiana, which is where I grew up, and we do a lot of business in Evansville anyway. I was looking through Loopnet, and I found a place in downtown Evansville, on Loopnet.
Right.
And while I was really bored in the hospital, I went over and I met an agent, over at the property, walked me through it, and talked to you about it on the phone. And we offered on it, and they took it. So, I guess the moral of the story is just always be looking.
Right.
Always be looking for those opportunities.
Great point.
It's very challenging right now in the climate that we're in because people are buying at just insane levels. Like, people are buying at 5 caps here in Indianapolis on commercial property, which is
right.
How does anyone make any money at that?
Yeah, not only 5 caps, but 5 caps that are the rent is truly maxed out. Like they just went through, say, a cycle of increasing rents. And so there's no horizon of increases for another 2 or 3 years, and they're selling them at 5 caps. Very unusual time. Very unusual time.
Which, let me say, we are not buyers at 5 caps.
Right.
That is not something that that we look to. I mean, the market's cyclical, and whenever people are buying at that level, it's really challenging to find something.
There's a lot of institutional money that's driving that. It needs a place to go, and so that's a little different. You don't see a lot of individuals buying stuff at those rates. At least not
institutional money, dumb money, whatever
Right.
you want to call
other
it.
people's
Other people's money is exactly
other
what it
people's
is.
money. It doesn't matter when it's other people. You make your fees no matter what. All right, so let's go back. So you should always be looking. Loopnet's a great example. You can get on Zillow even, and you'll see stuff on there. Talk to the groups that you're working with. If you start looking at this, you'll start to see what it is that's attractive to you, and you know the different options that are out there. We do suggest starting small, fairly small. It's hard to do in commercial too small, but if you have residential experience already, it shouldn't be too much of a leap, especially if you go into the into the apartment rental market, so to speak. You know, we've got I can think of other examples besides our Muncie property. We have I think it's an 8-unit here that we helped sell for someone and we manage. And, you know, there's a lot of properties like that are a great way to get your foot in the door. We would suggest not going too giant at first, you know, see if you like it, make sure you've got management in place and can handle that. But commercial real estate can be extremely lucrative if it's done right. You know, we have a specific model where we basically redevelop a property because that's what we do, or we build it, stick build it right out of the ground. Mm-hmm. We buy dirt and build a 30,000 square foot, you know, apartment building. Or we build a 144 unit, you know, apartment complex. However, a lot of people don't have that ability. You know, they have full-time jobs. This is a way for them to invest. So I think you start small. You start looking for, you know, properties like that. You have to be careful in different markets and where you go. I feel like almost more than even single family residential, you always say good properties in good areas. Mm-hmm. And I think that holds true more than ever with commercial.
Big time. We have had several projects brought to us. You know, I remember some guys that we do some work with, you know, sent us down to a near West Side apartment complex years ago. And I think that was like a 250-ish unit apartment complex.
I believe so, yeah.
You know, and they had the people that we work with, they were the lenders, you know, on the property.
Right.
And, you know, they sent us down there to take a look at it. And it was really run down in an area that was not good and, in fact, trending down, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You know, and it didn't take us very long to say this is not something that we would be interested in. Yeah. A project of that size, that rundown, the tenants that were in there were obviously not taking care of the place. It just didn't feel safe,
right,
you know, being there.
There's so much that can go wrong if it goes wrong. You have so much riding on these that we're already really picky with single-family residential. We are very picky. We're selective on where we buy and what we buy. We've learned the hard way that if you're not in the really good areas and it's a good house, then you can get in trouble. So we're very, very picky with that. We take this to an extreme with these commercial properties. So we look at commercial properties in areas where we would never look at single-family homes because it's too nice. The numbers don't work for single-family homes in those areas, yet we look at land there. We look at commercial properties in those areas. So if anything, we believe strongly that when you're getting into commercial properties, the higher the end, the better. Now, correct, there's a dollar limit to what you can do. Mm-hmm. However, err to the side of more expensive than less expensive.
Correct.
For sure.
And if the only thing that like if you have to get in, you know, if you really want to get into commercial real estate and the only thing out there that you see are these properties that are really run down or properties that are in really bad areas, don't do it. I mean, don't be a buyer. Just sit on the sidelines. Something will come along. We've seen it a lot. There's lots of building that has happened around Indianapolis with newer apartments. And there's a reason why some of these have run down, because the supply of really nice new apartment living has went up. So people, the lower income, you know, residents, they have to go somewhere.
Right.
You know, and trying to turn around a major apartment complex, and when I say major, say 50 plus units, and trying to turn it around after it's already got a stigma, attached to it. In fact, we had another apartment complex that we looked at not too long ago that, you Googled, and there was like 2 or 3 people that have died,
right?
In there.
I Googled it for us.
Correct. In the last 5 years, the chances of turning that around are so very slim. And really, in my personal opinion, the only way is to get everybody out, have 24-hour security on the place, redo everything, and then start fresh. And I mean, the carrying cost with that is just so substantial. So
we helped someone in a similar situation. So about 7 years ago, we helped on a 108-unit apartment complex in an area that was doable. The area itself was doable, but the property had been stymied multiple times by multiple owners. It had become a hot potato, and it was vacant pretty much, and if you don't do all of those buildings at once and turn that property around, it's hard to get the momentum going on the new one, because you're moving people into, a quarter, 3/4 empty complex and then a half empty complex. And those first people you're not going to be able to get the best tenants because they don't want to move into a ghost town. And if you don't get the best tenants at the beginning, then you can't get the best tenants at the end. And then before you know it, you're right back where you started. So those big properties, you've got to be careful with. You've got to be so careful, even if they're in a good area,
right,
if they're a distressed property.
I agree. So good properties, good areas.
Right.
Same rings true in single family. We say the same thing. Really be picky on the area that you get into. There's a reason why it's a bad area, and there's a reason why other people have not got it to work for 3 decades.
Right.
Don't be so arrogant that you think that you're going to be the person that's going to magically turn this around. So good properties in good areas. Second, I believe that you have to really look at the market that your target market that you're looking at. It needs to be unique within the marketplace. Who are you going to be, renting to? As I said, big supply out there right now. Just down the street here in Fishers, Indiana, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of apartments are being built right now. So you have to look at what you're trying to go against. Now, I'm not saying that because hundreds of new apartments are being built that means that something existing doesn't work. These apartments are extremely high dollar apartments. I don't think there's anything in there for under $1,500 a month, which is a lot for a 1-bedroom apartment in Fishers, Indiana. Yeah. So if there was a 20 unit down the street that made sense, and you're able to do the cap rate, and it's an attractive cap rate,
right,
and the rents aren't $1,500, they're $800, and the cap rate is good, that could be a solid investment, because there's going to be a lot of people interested in a cheaper rent, that works. So you really have to look at what your competition is within that market.
That's an exact conversation you and I have had with the city council of Fishers. There can be gaps in a market, and you look for that. So if you can find a niche that there's an empty spot in it that needs to be filled. Another example is our property in Evansville. We went after Millennial Market in a downtown Evansville area where everything was brand new condos that were way too expensive for millennials. Way too expensive.
So let's dive into those two.
Yeah,
both of those that you just said. Looking at a niche. So we bought a 28 unit apartment complex with commercial underneath of it in downtown Evansville.
Right.
The previous owner did a wonderful job on the commercial spaces downstairs. There's a lawyer, there's a ministry, there's a print shop.
Yep.
Did a fabulous job. There wasn't really anything for us to do. Upstairs was a disaster. He was literally going to homeless shelters and bringing people in, and we had to turn this around. And mind you, this is in the heart of downtown Evansville, where revitalization is just going rampant. So
for an example, explain to folks how many shopping carts we pulled out of apartments.
We pulled 43 shopping carts out of 28 apartments.
God.
Which, so I didn't even really know that. I guess that's something that you see, with homelessness and, with
that's how they move stuff around.
Lower income people. They go into CVS and they take the shopping cart home with them. It's bananas. But But anyhow, we had to turn it around. So once we got people out, we were left with really tiny apartments in this building, really tiny.
Yep.
So we went and did a market study, which basically that market study can be going to Google, going to Zillow, going to rental websites and looking what you're going against. And
it can be going to the local Walmart and talking to people there.
Correct.
I mean, it can be as old-fashioned as you want. You can buy CoreLogic reports and all kinds of, fancy analysis that banks like to do.
Hell with that. Don't need that.
I agree.
Don't need it.
I agree.
It's literally a common sense approach, I think, is so much better. So we were looking at apartments that were going for $1,000 to $1,500 downtown Evansville. And we thought, do we knock down walls, make these apartments bigger, or do we make those apartments really nice and have be the lowest price point in the area? And what market would that attract? We decided that the Millennial Market would be someone that would be very interested in it. More millennials are looking for a place to flop than, a place to live.
Correct.
We put fiber internet, throughout. We got a little fortunate that a new medical school went up a couple blocks away, and we have a lot of med students in that building now. But we have a wait list for people that are trying, to get in there. I think it's always better to be not necessarily the cheapest, when it comes to apartments, but
for sure,
it helps whenever you're buying an existing building to be closer to the bottom than it is the top.
For sure. We wanted to get this building filled and make sure that we changed, like you talked about before, the stigma. It's not that this building had a terrible stigma, but we wanted to change the whole perception of the building. Mm-hmm. This downtown area it's really neat, and it's surrounded by beautiful buildings, and ours had been filled with literally homeless folks. And so we wanted to change the whole feeling of that building. And if you want to do that quickly, you and you're willing to not be greedy about it, you can fill it with really good people a little faster if you're not real aggressive on rents. And then you can get aggressive down the road. The last thing you want to do is be stymied in your turnaround of the property. So we believe in not being greedy right up front.
Right.
If you are turning a building around and you buy one, we really suggest this no matter where it is, not just this specific example, but we believe you should get it filled with as quality of people as you can and not push rents until after you've, equalized.
Correct.
You've got to get that building equalized, and then you can get aggressive. So
get it stable and build up.
Yeah. So if you build that into your math and going in and what your expectations are, we think you'll have a very much better long-term outlook for your project.
So you got to take your emotions out of it. Be real with yourself.
Yep.
Do your homework. Identify your target market. Yep. That was a project that we went forward on. Ended up really, really, being a big success for us. The second one that you mentioned, we talked to a lot of city officials and fishers. It's a project that we have not moved on.
Right.
But we could talk about kind of how we've identified it. It's a new build project that we were looking at. And the reason why we were looking at it is because of the hundreds of apartments that are going up, where the cheapest apartment is $1,500, yet Fishers is growing with lots of jobs that those jobs not necessarily could afford $1,500 a month. And that's crazy to me. I mean, we graduated college 20 years ago, I know, but I couldn't imagine getting out of college and, stepping, a $1,500 a month minimum, in Fishers. It's crazy.
No.
I couldn't have afforded it.
No, I think we were paying like $300 each and splitting
Correct.
a place.
That's exactly what I was paying.
I think it was $300, and that was
still broke.
Yeah. Scary.
But
so you're talking about another niche. So this is what they call a workforce niche. Mm-hmm. So there, if you look at a really high end market like Fishers, and keep in mind for folks who don't know, the area we're talking about, this is one of the highest net worth areas in the Midwest. So it's literally on lists as some of the top. It's not unheard of.
One of the most desirable places to live.
It's a wonderful, wonderful town. In fact, Clint was just talking about a $2.5 million place that he went and looked at with his wife for fun, and we were laughing because we know, even though it's not in great condition, we know it'll sell, like fast because it's in this area. So this is a very high-end, nice area. But there's still workforce in this area that has a need that's not being met. So you could look at any market, no matter what it is, in this case, a high-end market, and see if there's a missing match. Because if you just go into a market and you're small, which most of our clients are not giant institutions, and you try to compete with these apartment complexes, you will not succeed. They have too much money and they can do it at such a low return that it's not worth it. Yeah,
and there's lots of politics and everything else behind it
that's
too.
That's a whole other story.
It's a whole other episode. But with the project that we didn't move forward on, we were looking at building really small apartments, making them really nice and affordable. Say for example, just down the street from here, a Top Golf, was built 3 years ago. 500 jobs. It created 500 jobs.
It's crazy.
It's hard to believe that that's 500 jobs. But, I read the report in the Indianapolis Business Journal, 500 jobs. We were looking to try to cater to people that would be employed at a place like that.
Right.
So we met with a bunch of city councilmen, to get them behind the project. They did.
Economic Development Board.
Correct. Then there's lots behind the scenes with that, especially if you're in a bigger city. Fisher's obviously a suburb of Indianapolis. There's lots of behind the scenes planning. We ultimately did not go forward. Building prices shot up. We're not building anything right now. Right. It's just we believe that they are going to go down at some point. We don't know when. Don't have a crystal ball, but that is something I think is important to note. That know when it is not time.
Right.
We probably have $25,000 wrapped up into the planning of this, but yet we've put the project on hold.
Yep. There's a larger point here too, if I could touch on, which is know when to walk away too. So Clint and I, early on when we had come together, we had many years experience separately. And we're friends through all of that. But when we officially came together, well over a decade ago, we looked at a commercial project that had stalled. So they had built phase one of this condominium complex, basically, and then 2008 happened, and it stalled. And so we put it under contract. I don't even remember. I think it was a couple $1 million purchase, and so we put it under contract, $100,000 earnest money, non-refundable, and we went out and then started doing the research because we wanted to lock it up. And no matter how we cut the numbers, it did not work at that time.
If everything went right, we made a little.
Yeah.
And it never goes as planned.
And we walked away from $100,000, which, we're pretty successful in our industry, but we were just starting our business. That was a lot. That was a big hit for us when you're first starting a business to just walk away from. But know when it's time to walk away. It's okay. It's better to lose the $100,000 than hundreds of thousands on the project.
And that's the biggest caveat. Commercial is more risk. Anything that is more money, that is bigger, is more risk. There's more things that could go wrong. There's more moving parts. There's a reason why single-family residential is the biggest part of our business. It is a hedge against risk. We've got a system down on single-family that takes most of the risk out of it. Yeah, there's risk with tenants and whatnot, but you're talking. Let's go to the new development that we did in southern Indiana that we built. We had a roof issue. And we're still.
I shouldn't laugh.
We're still working through that.
Right.
They didn't put enough pitch in the roof, and we've had to pump some water off. From time to time.
There was a design change at the beginning. Someone didn't catch it.
There was a steel issue. I guess even go back even further than the roof. We had an issue where we needed to add steel. That was a $15,000. Increase.
Yeah, we had a 90-pound Amish boy up there bouncing on it like a trampoline.
Correct.
Going, this isn't right. Literally, he's on the steel beam up there going, bing,
and you can see it giving. You know? So, that's part of it. Like I said, we had the roof issue. The issues are bigger. Issues with single family is you may need an air conditioner.
Right.
Right. You may need a furnace.
It's not, stop the project at probably $30,000 a day in losses. I need another $100,000 for more steel.
Right.
These projects, these prices can be astronomical. So it is not for the faint of heart or for the newbies.
Correct.
Building or taking on a property that needs to be changed. And the reason we're focusing, I should point out, the reason we're so focused on like distressed turnarounds and building from new is because you're not going to it's not smart to try to compete out there with the very well-performing properties, again, because big money is out there buying them at rates that make no sense for our type of clients to buy. It does not make sense. So literally that shrinks the market down to the things we're talking about.
Right.
So that's part of why we're focused on these, just to explain that.
And we're going to have an additional podcast where we talk about the steps in doing a new commercial development, because I think that's could be 2 episodes long. It's going to be hard to get into that, today. So let's talk, let's wrap this up with what do we think the opportunities are in commercial real estate, moving forward. I've got some pretty strong opinions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that depending on what this market does, which we both feel that eventually it's going to at least cool down and that we think it will go negative, we think that there will be some opportunities out there for the smaller properties, for sure. Those are going to be owned by folks who don't have the deepest pockets.
Right.
And when things aren't going right, they'll be looking to get out of them. There's a lot of people who bought properties because they got caught up in all this excitement that had no business owning them. And, usually within about 2 years, those start to come back on the market. We see it all the time. So we think that those will be the opportunities coming up. There's always opportunity to build once build prices come down. So I'm not even going to touch on that because right now, don't build. It's just not smart. So I think you can be opportunistic out there looking for now, but like you and I have an appetite for hundreds of these. But we are lucky to get one every 3 years.
Right.
So if you've got to understand that. If you try to force more than what the market will bear, you'll get yourself in trouble.
Right. I think, we talk about the commercial real estate world still centering around housing. We don't have a great deal of experience in, office rentals. We have some,
right.
But that's not our core business. One thing here in Indianapolis that we've said, if you can figure out something unique to do with strip malls, you could be a billionaire because they are vacant everywhere in Indianapolis, and I don't want to touch them. But there's a huge market for that. I mean, I'm talking great areas. I mean, heck, even around here, there's
in Carmel, they built a brand new one. It was never filled, and now it's for sale again.
Correct. They're vacant everywhere.
Right.
So people are, working from home more. You're seeing, places shut down.
Right.
I think that there's lots of rezoning opportunities if somebody could get into commercial developments and make them, get into rezoning them into multifamily. We're seeing large office buildings around here not selling.
Right.
Large office
buildings. For the first time in my history being in the business. 25,
50, 60,000 square foot,
right.
Office buildings not selling. And I think they're going to continue to come down. Yeah. I think there's something there. We've seen it in the hospitality, industry where we're seeing lots of the smaller motels, not sell and come on the market. There's lots of opportunities out there. But, kind of wrapping this up, always be looking, but keep your ego in check. Mm-hmm. Commercial is more risk. Don't jump into the deep end on your first one. You have to be really, really cautious. And also, don't think that you're going to be the one that's going to turn a failed development around. I mean, there's a reason why it's been a failed development for 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. Very hard. So do your homework. Really, really dive into the numbers. It's a little bit more difficult today because cap rates are bananas. Building materials are crazy, so developing is challenging.
Be patient. So you're going to have to be patient, but keep looking, talk to folks like us. if it's something that you guys are interested in our market, obviously reach out to us. We're always happy to talk about this and try to find opportunities for our clients to succeed in this area. It's again, though, it requires patience, and there's deals out there still. It just you gotta be patient. You gotta look and look and look until you find them, and you gotta be willing to walk away from some that you thought were good deals once you dig in more.
Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there's not opportunities out there. So keep plugging away. We're the Homeboys. Again, hit subscribe down there underneath. And till next time, happy investing.